This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. In just over a week, the federal government will partially shut down unless Congress can find a way forward on funding. And House Speaker Mike Johnson has not given a clear signal what that way forward might be. So now we turn to a member of the chamber on the other side of the aisle. Democratic Congressman Brad Sherman of California is joining us now. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Of course, you'll be returning to Washington next week with just 3 legislative days between you and a partial shutdown. What is the most likely outcome here? How does this get resolved?
Well, you always bet on Congress kicking the can down the road. If you bet that way, you'll be right more than half the time. But there are other possibilities as well, and there is certainly the possibility of a partial government shutdown.
Well, the House Freedom Caucus seemed to make things a lot more difficult in the last 24 hours, now pushing this year-long continuing resolution. Congressman, I'm guessing that's not what you're looking for. Either way, does this move make a shutdown more likely?
It's just one step. I don't think it makes it more likely. The existence of the Freedom Caucus makes a shutdown more likely. The idea that we would take decisions that Congress made over a year ago and put the government on automatic pilot based on those decisions, I mean, that's an insult to every taxpayer in the country. Another aspect of this that will concern my colleagues is that we have particular funding for projects in our districts. And if we go with a year-long continuing resolution, all of those, you got the plane flying automatic pilot, and all those projects are being dropped without a parachute and crashing onto the ground. I think it would be a very bad idea. Then finally, if we have a continuing resolution that, and this is what excites the Freedom Caucus, if we have a continuing resolution that goes past April 30th, at least under current law, there's a 1% cut.
Yes, right.
So, of course, in order to have a continuing resolution, we'd have to pass a new law, and a lot of us would fight against that 1% cut. Frankly, I fight against the whole idea of putting the government on automatic pilot.
Well, but there's many in the Republican conference who fight against the whole idea of any continuing resolution whatsoever. You've heard from Speaker Mike Johnson on multiple occasions suggesting he doesn't want to do another short-term CR. The Majority Whip, Tom Emmer, was on this show just recently before the break saying there won't be another CR. Potentially, as we saw with Kevin McCarthy, it could put the Speaker's job at risk. One of your Democratic colleagues, Josh Gottheimer, has now suggested maybe changing the rules so that motion to vacate couldn't be brought by just one member, that maybe Democrats should act to protect the Speaker. Would you support that?
Well, certainly the rules shouldn't provide that any one member can move to vacate the speakership. When Democrats were in control, we had a rule similar to what Gottheimer is proposing, and I certainly want to go back to it. Whether Democrats would actually affirmatively vote to protect Speaker Johnson, first of all, he wouldn't want it. That would put a scarlet letter on him, a scarlet D for democratically supported. And second, we profoundly disagree with Mike Johnson. So what he needs to do is negotiate spending bills like we have every other year. And I think in order to prove to his base that he negotiated hard, he may feel it's necessary to shut down the government. What a tremendous waste of taxpayer dollars we've already seen. Every government agency, instead of focusing on their work, they have a meeting right now on, well, what do we do if there's a shutdown? And they've had several meetings like that this year. It's an insane way to run any institution.
There have been a lot of meetings on what to do about the border, it seems like, as well, Congressman, and that's obviously not been solved. I don't know if you're a Charlie Brown fan, but I'm trying to follow the bead here, and it seems like Lucy keeps setting up the football for Joe Biden. At one point, there was demand for a legislative solution here. An agreement was crafted in the Senate. It's DOA in the House, and the word was, we don't need a bill. The president should act on his own. Now reports say that he's going to do that and take executive action, and the Speaker of the House calls it an election year gimmick. Is Mike Johnson gaslighting Joe Biden?
The election year gimmick is whenever you take a bill that would make the country better and you refuse to support it or even allow a vote on it because your goal is to make the country worse and help your political campaign. And I've seen that done on rare occasions, and it's disgusting, but at least, like most disgusting things, it's hidden. This is the first time that it's out in public. Former President Trump is telling us, make the country worse so that I have an easier time getting elected president. The fact is the deal negotiated in the Senate is a good deal. It's a tough one for Democrats to accept, but their position was don't help Ukraine unless you give us this. We're giving it to them, and they won't take it, nor will they help the Ukraine.
Well, on the subject of Ukraine, Congressman, your colleague, Congressman Bill Pascrell, posted on X this afternoon saying, coming soon, Democrats will introduce a discharge petition to bring Ukraine funding to the House floor. Are there enough that would sign such a discharge petition? And I'm not even speaking of just Republicans. I'm wondering how many Democrats might be lost because this also includes unconditional funding for Israel.
Well, first of all, the funding for Israel has never been unconditional. It's always subject to the Leahy Act and other provisions of U.S. law that require that our weapons be used according to the rule or the law of armed conflict. And Israel has always accepted aid under those conditions. I would think that we would have a discharge petition that had Israel and Ukraine and perhaps the entire Senate bill, which is what I would support, would get the signature of almost every Democrat. And we would still need more. We wouldn't just need 3 Republicans. We'd need 15 or 20 Republicans. But there are literally hundreds of Republicans who want to see us aid both Israel and Ukraine. And the question is, are they willing to sign a discharge petition? That is, the majority party tries to keep its members from signing a discharge petition. I think in my 28 years in Congress, only 2 have been successful. And one of those was actually supported by the Speaker. So you really only one time in my 28 years has a bill come to the floor and passed when the Speaker didn't want to have us vote on it.
How about that? A little perspective for you. Congressman, the State of the Union address is 2 weeks from tonight. Will it actually take place if the government's in a partial shutdown?
Yes. And if what better and more necessary time to hear from the president than when the country's been brought to a standstill by partisanship and, frankly, by Republicans. It's clear that the Senate can reach an agreement on these bills, and if the House can't function, we should just pass the Senate bills.
Congressman, I have one final question for you, knowing that you sit on the Financial Services Committee. The ranking member of that committee, Maxine Waters, as well as Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, even Republican Senator Josh Hawley, have all come out in recent days to say that they believe the deal of Capital One buying Discover Financial, $35 billion major transaction, should be blocked. Are you in agreement on that?
Well, it certainly should be blocked until regulators can take a look at it, and it should not be rubber stamped. But the issue I have is this going to destroy the Discover card, or is this going to turn the Discover card into a real competitor with the duopoly, the MasterCard Visa duopoly? We need more competition in the credit card space, and the number one thing to analyze, well, the number one thing is to look at the prudential soundness of these 2 banks and to make sure that they don't fail. But close behind that is this more competition in the credit card space or less?
Congressman, it's good to have you back with us. Brad Sherman, California, thanks for the time.